So it's like you have something like 18 really clever young people, and what can you do with that if you have some freedom of creating courses? Well, you can say that you are now obligated to explore the expressive range of 360 video, audio, animations that the good teachers can teach you how to make, and also interactive elements. What can you get out of this? That's sort of the challenge. And these guys had to do it, sort of, or else they would flunk the course, have a delay and problems with their student loan and everything. So there was no choice. No, that's not really how it is. But I will tell you a little bit more about how we did this and what they managed to make, not least. And time is always a big issue here in Media City Bergen, but hopefully I will be able to describe all the 4 narratives that were produced. This is me, not relaxing really, but contemplating whether I will be frozen when I die, or maybe I won't. That's what happens inside the glasses anyway. So this thing about innovation pedagogy, it means something like pushing the limits of what we are habitually doing. And this also goes for the course leaders then. So this time we were very successful in that nobody had really done any of these things before. Everybody had expertise in relevant fields, but nobody had made like VR journalism. This means that we were all insecure. We could not be like authoritative teachers. It certainly meant these things here on the list, which is kind of obvious, but to invent something new, to push the limits. That's really interesting, and it's mind expanding also, and discussions become different from teaching than what Martin Heidegger really meant when he said something, or other like regular teaching types. To create new value, that's probably what you're talking about, and others also, that value is abstract term in one way, but also what if we manage to do some nice techniques, for example, that could become more common afterwards, so the students bring them with them into production life later on. Dealing with uncertainty, that's almost the same as inventing something new in a sense. It's always full of these uncertainties, but it also ends up with some nice mechanisms made in tricks and understandings that we would also never have in regular teaching. And very nice because the teachers are very responsible. We all want it to be as high quality as possible. So that's sort of always the case, I guess, and it's also the case here. So we pushed as far as we could into this thing. I just want to say that exactly this method that I describe now has been used for 2 other very interesting courses that are now history. But drone programming, like your local journalism drone that helps to take all the shots for your short video in a local newspaper, flying around doing the face shot, doing the overhead, doing various types of shots. Very interesting project that I could have talked about for a long time. Drone video with 3D modeling, like what if we build a hotel at the top of Ulriken? That would be like Ulriken in the future, so there was lots of work filming and making animations where you also had a really old style gondola up the hill. I don't think it would be approved by the city council, but it was very interesting to work with. So this is the topic, virtual reality productions. So there was training, of course. The teachers trained the students in what we are just calling here rich forms of storytelling, encouraged to explore. So, I guess I already made this point. We tried to be serious about it. We knew that lots of things had already been produced. We tried to avoid some of the things that you were into, like some people have already discovered what some of the basic elements of what work well and what may not work as well. So we tried to learn from that before we got started. And again, there are lots of nuances here that could be a full-scale seminar in its own right. But I will skip to our, let's say, rules. What makes it journalism? We had to deal with that because we could not allow anything in order for it to have this focus on on journalism. Use proper sources to be credible and truthful in your VR story. Be careful about using hidden microphones and cameras. It's not like it's absolutely forbidden, but it's problematic and it should be ideally avoided if you can make a good story without it. Don't violate people's right to privacy. Kind of obvious too, but it's slightly difficult to accomplish sometimes, and also something to be really aware of. The fourth point, as you will see from my clever visualization, we just had to drop. So no reenactments or simulations. No, that didn't work. We had to turn it around and say that that's okay. Actually, it's kind of promising to do exactly this. So that's a part of where we had to switch away from, let's say, established norms to some extent. Okay, so let's go into it. Time flies. Schizophrenia, an educational horror story, at least the way I interpret it. The user is situated inside the VR glasses, of course, in a normal apartment, sounds and the radio is on. But the thing is that you are a schizophrenic person, so that you are experiencing increasingly worrying symptoms of this disease. Hallucinatory impressions, giving you a very strong sense, at least if you're a normal reacting person, of what it means, what it can mean to have this to suffer from this condition. And very strong, good actors having these horrible voices encouraging you to kill yourself in various ways. You jump out the window, it's high enough, you will die. And various other types of things that these voices said. The cheese on the bread grows holes while you watch it. So if you keep your eye on certain aspects, then they change and they become scary. Paintings on the wall change content into nasty things. And what I personally freaked out about was when I'm down there in the washroom in this third scene, and spiders, when you look down on the drain, spiders come out. There are also people screaming and knocking on the windows from outside. So the thing is that this was really a strong experience of this disease that also had then been, let's say, journalistically registered by talking to people in advance, patients and doctors. Plastic, something quite different, which does not have the same very strong first-person empathy, but it's more entertaining or more lighter. So this is a story about environmental crisis relating to plastic products and the enormous amount of plastic products. As the other stories, it's based on research and also on how to try to approach children, how to address children in the story. So the narrative somehow you could say resembles a playground. There's this scene where the football pitch slowly fills up with plastic and there are noises and sounds, and so that you, at least if you're a child and you're into the ideas here, you sort of drown in these plastic elements. And there's another scene where you're in the, I didn't have the picture of it, but you're in the recirculation plant, and it's noisy and loud and full of visuals, but also if you keep your eye on certain spots, there is information screens popping up or information elements. So it's also partly gamified so that you sort of look for and you can find this information. So these scenes are kind of playgrounds for getting a little bit scared, but then also figuring out how to learn, what to do with it, or at least to think positively about it. Another one, it's not the same as the schizophrenia, but it has somehow the same feel to it. You are a drug addict. There's this real social realism from the street. The first person scene where, because of the movement problems that were discussed here, they are all staying put in a sense, but you're in a corner being really drugged down. You're on the bus or the Bybanen. You're in the end taking an overdose. So again, it's based on research, based on like realistic understandings of this nasty, like where the 360 video can be kind of realistic, and that's exactly what helps you to get into the story. Really complex ethical issues to deal with in order to make this like journalistically acceptable. So there was no doubt they had to use actors to recreate the scenes with themselves as as a drug addict in order to avoid some of these issues. So, staggering through the street, taking the bus, buying drugs, doing the overdose. And that's, I remember when I tried it up here. It sounds like banal, but it was really, it felt like it was my arm. Because I could look down and there is the arm, exactly where I would expect it to be. But this is another person's arm taking the shot. So, again, a very strong first-person experience where you're supposed to be inside this particular perspective on life. While this one, the final one, is maybe the most playful and crazy one, in the sense that we could call it something like entertainment science journalism, something like that. What if you freeze your dead body according to the cryonics technology and you just hope for something to happen in the future? That's the topic. So it starts with a very realistic, like you're lying on your deathbed in a sense, with doctors and everything ready to freeze you down. So it does not go into like a science fiction story of this. It's kind of not slow, but it's kind of careful about it. So you're lying there in this tube almost, and you have 4 different perspectives on this, from the very, very enthusiastic to the Christian perspective, or the, let's say, God is greater than this and has better plans for you than to freeze yourself down in this box. The ethicist and the doctor, the physician. So this was let's say, a weird story with real interesting, thought-provoking perspectives. And I guess this is the one we discussed most when it comes to the journalistic aspect of it. But we agree that as long as it asks questions and opens up curiosity around the topic, it counts as journalism. And there's no conclusion here that everybody who does this is silly or something like that. So it becomes like science journalism at the NRK, or probably also in the BBC and others that could do this in regular TV terms. Yes, I'm sure I've spent all my 15 minutes. But these are stories that we are now continuing to analyze, because it can also become like a scientific article where we look at all these ways of doing things, try to catalog and describe them properly and relate to, of course, to existing practices, and see how far we got with these perspectives and how they relate to other projects. And we are kind of proud that you can now, I'm not sure how many will actually do this, but you can go in on our website, you can start up these VR stories properly using your top super advanced VR equipment or the cardboard box, depending on what you have. But you can certainly experience these 4 stories in their full technical abilities, which is really nice. And they will stay there for years and years and years and be available in this way. Yes. That's it.